Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 26th. I'm Stephanie Haney here with your 3 News Now early update with the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. We'll start each morning like we do each morning with the latest numbers of COVID-19 that came in yesterday from the Ohio Department of Health. We get those numbers each day at 2 p.m., so I'll be giving you the numbers right now from Monday at 2 p.m. as they came in. Right now, the total number of cases of COVID-19 reported and probable, based on that expanded CDC definition in the state of Ohio, is now 32,477. So we look at this on a basis of checking out the day-to-day newly reported cases, the day-to-day newly reported deaths, because what we're looking for is a downward trend. And for that, we need to see 14 consecutive days of a downward trend in this reported data. Now, do keep in mind that there is a few days lag time in the data, so some of these cases and deaths may have occurred or first been reported over the past several days, but they were reported yesterday at 2 p.m. So yesterday, we saw 566 new reported cases of COVID-19 here in the state of Ohio. That's up from what we saw on Sunday, and that was after several days of a downturn in a row. So yesterday, we broke that downward mini trend of the several days in a row of the number of newly reported cases going down, and it popped back up to 566 cases. The same thing happened with the total number of deaths that were newly reported yesterday. Now the total number of deaths in Ohio is 1,987, getting very, very close to that 2,000 mark here in Ohio. Yesterday, we saw 18 new reported deaths related to COVID-19. That's up from 13 on Sunday. We also saw a big spike on Saturday, though, where there were 84 new reported deaths. So those numbers have really been all over the place in terms of number of deaths reported on a day-to-day basis here in the state of Ohio, with, again, that total at this point being 1,987, getting very close to that 2,000 mark, as the total number of deaths in the U.S. gets very close to that 100,000 mark. Yesterday, we also learned that the total number of hospitalizations related to COVID-19 in the state of Ohio, this is since March 9th, since we first became aware of it existing in Ohio, is now 5,511. Yesterday, we saw 35 new reported hospitalizations, and that was down from Sunday when we saw 39 new reported hospitalizations. In terms of the ICU admissions, we also saw a downturn in the new reported admissions yesterday. We are now at a total of 1,443 people who have been admitted to the ICU out of all of those people who have been hospitalized. Yesterday, we saw 5 new reported ICU admissions. The day before that, on Sunday, we saw 9 reported new ICU admissions. Now, as we continue to do this phased reopening here in the state of Ohio, BMVs are allowed to reopen today. Here's what you need to know if your driver's license has expired during any of the points at which it was ordered that people stay at home, either under the stay-at-home order or the Stay Safe Ohio order. There is no rush to renew that driver's license, and people are actually encouraged not to rush to the BMV because they do not want a situation where there is overcrowding, where people are not in a position where they can maintain a safe physical distance of at least 6 feet. So specifically related to expired driver's license, there has been something passed where your license or ID, if it expired after March 9th, that expiration is not necessarily effective right now. It's automatically been extended. So it will expire on either December 1st or 90 days after the emergency state ends here in Ohio. So what that means is you have until, once the emergency state ends here in Ohio, you have 90 more days, or December 1st, whichever one comes first. So if your license is currently expired, you will not be fined, you won't be cited for that, you won't be held accountable for that in any way as long as it expired on or after March 9th. Also keep in mind, many of the things that you do need to handle at the BMV, you can actually do online. So if you check out the website for the BMV, bmv.ohio.gov, you can see what exactly can be done online. This includes things like renewing your vehicle license plate, updating your next of kin or emergency contact, change of addresses, those kinds of things, tracking the status of a new license or identification card if that's something that you have coming your way. So keep that in mind. And if you do have to go to the BMV, if you find yourself in a situation where you do absolutely need to go there, keep in mind that they do have a Get In Line online tool. And it's been recommended by officials that you use that tool so that you aren't just standing around waiting in a long line, and you get an idea of when you need to be there and when you can be serviced. So people are being strongly encouraged to use those resources. We have lots of information about that on WKYC.com. Something else that's now allowed to reopen today are gyms and public pools, but those will look very different if you step inside of a gym space or you venture out to a public pool today. Equipment has been moved and spaced out, and cleaning processes are definitely more intense. For gyms and fitness centers specifically, they need to give people enough space during their workouts, and when it comes to public pools and club pools, they have to meet the safety protocols as well to reopen, like cleaning public areas and restrooms every 2 hours. They do expect people to stay 6 feet away from each other in the water as well. Other things that can also open today are bowling alleys and mini golf courses, but again, they will also have to comply with those very strict physical distancing requirements. Sports like football and basketball will be allowed to train. That's including weight training and conditioning, but you're not going to see any high fives or huddles happening in those athletic training situations. And scrimmages and games are not allowed at this point. So that's where we stand in terms of that. Of course, fitness facilities did get that judge's order last week where they were told they would not be penalized for reopening early. Some people did do that. Some establishments did choose to do that, but today is the official day from the health advisories and orders from Governor Mike DeWine when those fitness facilities are officially permitted to reopen. Here's something interesting to keep in mind when we're checking out what's going on with the COVID-19 vaccine. There's a U.S. company that is beginning human trials on a COVID-19 vaccine in Australia. It's Novavax, and they'll be working with 131 volunteers in the first phase of this trial, testing the safety of a vaccine and looking for signs of its effectiveness. Animal testing has suggested that this vaccine is effective in low doses. Novavax could manufacture at least 100 million doses this year and 1.5 billion in 2021. This is what the company says. Now, this is only if the vaccine is approved. What they're talking about is their production capacity at this point. So for a vaccine to be approved within the 2020 calendar would be basically unheard of. That's what a lot of the medical experts are saying. However, there are people who are doing everything they can to try and get this vaccine out as quickly as possible. So the results of the first phase of clinical trials in Melbourne and Brisbane are expected to be known in July. That's what Novavax said. So thousands of candidates in several countries would then become involved in a second phase. So this first phase, they're starting with 131 people. The second phase would be thousands of people across multiple countries. Right now, there are about a dozen experimental vaccines that are in the early stages of testing or about to begin the early stages of testing. That's mostly in China, the US, and Europe. And it's not clear if any of these will prove safe and effective, but this is part of something that President Donald Trump has laid out called Operation Warp Speed, where we're testing multiple vaccines at the same time so that if one of them seems to click, if something seems like it's working better than the others, we can then run with that rather than testing one, waiting to see how that works out. If it's a fail, then moving on to the other. So the process has been moving in multiple steps to try and get that vaccine as quickly as possible. A lot of people talking about Cedar Point. It's been in the news over the past couple of days. Meet the Press's Chuck Todd talked about it over the weekend with our Romney Smith about how much he loves Cedar Point and how he thinks they have the best roller coasters out there, and it is his favorite roller coaster park. Also talking with Governor Mike DeWine about that. And Cedar Point is now giving us the very first look at some of the big changes inside the main gate. So what used to be the Bayou Refreshments Eatery, which is located in the front of the park, has now been changed into the French Quarter Confections. So this is the place where you can get your giant funnel cakes, your mini funnel cakes if you want something a little bit smaller, waffles on a stick, cotton candy, fresh made fudge. Is anyone else getting very hungry right now? I'm very excited for this to reopen. So this spot, it was previously a walk-up location. Now it has an indoor service and waiting area for people. So when that becomes available, you can guess what I'll be hitting up as soon as that's safe and open for people to frequent it. Sounds very exciting. Among the many new things that they've done at Cedar Point in preparation for the 150th season. And that was supposed to open on May 9th, but because of COVID-19, they weren't able to do so. The park is hoping that they will get to reopen this season. That does remain to be seen. However, when Governor Mike DeWine was talking with Chuck Todd over the weekend, he asked him about when Cedar Point might reopen, and DeWine said he's just not sure. That would definitely be further down in the phases, and his family loves Cedar Point too, and he's rooting for it, but we just don't know right now. Here's a good story to end things on today from Cleveland Cavaliers center Andre Drummond, who went out to eat in Florida where establishments are open and really made the day of a server out there, bringing a huge smile to that person's face and to a lot of people's faces who have heard this story. So according to an Instagram post from the restaurant, Drummond left a $1,000 tip on a $164 bill. That was at the Che restaurant in Delray Beach, Florida over the weekend. And if you're doing the math, that's about a 609% tip. So that's pretty good. I can tell you from my server days, anytime you got 20% or higher, that was pretty great. We were very excited about that. 20% is, what is expected to be tipped if you do give good service. A lot of people have different numbers in their mind, but I can tell you from someone who worked in the service industry for a long time, 20% is the number. So 609% is very good. Very, very happy about that. So the server who received it said that the day started off as a slow day, getting there to work a double shift. Little did that person know that they would get a tip no server would guess that they would ever receive when they opened that checkbook. What a day for that person. I'm sure that was phenomenal and just made that person's day. And if you've ever worked in the service industry and you've walked into your shift on a day when you're working a double, that's 2 shifts back to back, that's exactly the kind of thing you hope happens, but doesn't happen nearly as often as one might think. So Drummond doing a great thing there, and he responded to that Instagram post and he wrote back, "Thank you for being amazing." Thank you for being amazing, Andre Drummond, bringing a smile to that person's face and giving us some positive news to end on here today. For 3 News Now, early update. We are expecting a press conference today from Governor Mike DeWine. That will be at 2 p.m., and I will be back here shortly after 2 p.m. as soon as we get those updated numbers from the Ohio Department of Health to let you know what's happening day to day with COVID-19 here in Ohio. Everyone have a great rest of your morning and your early afternoon, and I'll see you back here shortly. I'm Stephanie Haney.